Today in the News Digest, Ukrainian assault UAVs have paid a fiery visit. 3 self-propelled howitzers and a heavy flamethrower system destroyed. Dnipro region battlefield update. A local counterattack is gaining momentum that allows our forces to disrupt enemy plans. Russia is paying the price of Putin's stability, economically, militarily, but most of all, socially. With a new draft wave looming, the middle class starts showing discontent. Assault UAVs by LaSar's group Ukrainian UAV unit have successfully targeted 3 Pion self-propelled howitzers and a Sontsepyok heavy flamethrower system. In a series of high-precision strikes earlier this February, the unit targeted Russian occupying forces positions. Aerial reconnaissance of the LaSar's group identified an exact location of the heavy thermobaric launcher, a command and staff vehicle, and an entire artillery platoon. Despite these targets being located deep in the enemy's rear, the command deployed heavy bomber drones to carry out the mission. Ukraine can still fight for years and will not agree to cede territory in any deal. Oleksandr Pivnenko, commander of Ukraine's National Guard, stated that. He also said he disagrees with U.S. President Donald Trump's assertion that Ukraine will lose the war unless a ceasefire is reached quickly. Pivnenko explained that, from a military perspective, victory for Ukraine means liberating the occupied territories. He acknowledged that this may not be an immediate priority, but strategically, Ukraine remains committed to this goal.
We are capable of fighting for several more years, 100%, but wars should ultimately come to an end. In general, on this planet, killing people over territory and resources is something we struggle to comprehend. It has to stop. Everyone wants the war to end. But the main question for us is, at what cost? Either it's a ceasefire, which I believe everyone would agree to, that would allow for a reassessment of further actions and agreements, or it's the loss of territory. Let's just say that we won't give any territory away, I'm certain. Oleksandr Pivnenko, commander of Ukraine's National Guard, in an interview with BBC News Ukrainian.
Ukraine has been fighting the Russian army for almost 4 years. And that, as we all heard many times, is the second army in the world. Russians, at least it was considered such. But what is the result? As of today, Putin has achieved absolutely none of his strategic wish list. In this regard, he has failed completely. Today, Ukraine has remained a sovereign state. NATO has grown larger in 2 states, Finland and Sweden, and support for Kyiv not remains unprecedented, but is soaring. Ukrainian defenders are conducting active assault and counterattack local operations in the Oleksandrivka direction. Again, this is a local counterattack operation, the main goal of which is to stop the Russian advance towards the Dnipropetrovsk region, according to Vladislav Voloshin, spokesman for the Southern Defense Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The situation in this section of the front remains tense. However, the Ukrainian armed forces are not only holding their defenses, but are taking active measures to prevent Russian troops from breaking through to the town of Pokrovsk and the borders of the Dnipro region.
The situation there is quite difficult, but the Ukrainian armed forces are eliminating Russian troops and trying to prevent them from advancing. We are continuing our counterattacks and assaults, so Russia is in a difficult situation there now, but it is not ceasing its activities. Vladislav Voloshin, spokesperson for the Southern Defense Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
Experts say Mother Russia is going down, and as much as she does not want to, she doesn't get to decide otherwise, really, as she has long given the option away, about 30 years ago, to be precise, by choosing what Russians called stability over a bumpy road to freedom. And now, Russia is paying the price of such stability. Not a nation, but one man, and one man alone, is deciding its fate, Vladimir Putin, with his army losing its ability to achieve any meaningful military success on the battlefield in Ukraine in particular, and with the Kremlin's internal systemic problems mounting in general. Even a diplomatic way out of this mess seems more and more unlikely with every month. From June 2021 to May 2024, Russian troops advanced just 60 kilometers in the Donetsk region. Despite Moscow's hopes for concessions from Kyiv during talks in Geneva, the window of diplomatic opportunity currently seems to be closed for them. Problems are mounting. The lack of trained soldiers, low morale, and mass desertion are undermining Russia's combat capability. The turned-off telegram and Starlink has deprived Russians of critically important coordination and logistics channels. And domestically, the Kremlin simply can no longer rely on patriotism. The stocks have been depleted, both figuratively and not only, as the recruitment to draft soldiers under the contract was and is based solely on huge payments, which creates enormous additional pressure on the budget. And the middle class is starting to feel it and shows growing discontent with a worsening life quality.
We talked about this before. Russia is one of these countries that, as I said, is like a light. It's like a light bulb in a way. It's off or it's on, and at the moment it's on.
And we have to turn it off.
So we've got to turn it off, and the finances, definitely people's pockets, the middle class and the oligarchs will only stand for so much. The lower class in Russia, of which there are millions, don't care because they're already in shit. Let's be honest. You see the pictures. They're already in an awful position. And all they want is greater Mother Russia because that's the only meaning they have in their life. They don't have another meaning. But the middle class in St. Petersburg and Moscow, the money and a good life is more important for them.
Putin needs more cannon fodder ASAP, and preparations for a new draft wave are on their way. Necessary laws adopted at the end of last year that allow the Russian Ministry of Defense to recruit those 2 million currently in reserve, in a desperate attempt to mobilize as many as they can. The influx of contract soldiers has ceased to cover mounting battlefield losses. In addition, since November, military enlistment offices in the Russian Federation have been conducting a year-round draft, and in December, Putin signed a law on conscription for reservists. The previous draft wave, in September 2022, caused a sharp wave of discontent, and 700 to 900,000 Russians just fled the country.
Mr. Putin will struggle to increase the number and quality of recruits. Russia relies on money, not patriotism, to enlist soldiers. The probability of death or injury, the neglect of veterans, and the state's attempt to wriggle out of paying coffin money to the families of fallen soldiers are all raising the cost of recruitment. From The Economist.
And Donald Trump, all of a sudden, also does not make Putin's life any easier by extending some U.S. sanctions against Russia for another year. The executive order, which takes effect on 20 February, provides for the extension of a number of anti-Russian sanctions introduced by U.S. President's executive orders in 2014, 2018, and 2022. The first executive order on sanctions against Russia was issued in 2014. U.S. President Barack Obama's executive order provided for the freezing of the property of a number of individuals. Initially, sanctions were applied to those who had facilitated Russia's occupation of Crimea. The sanctions list was subsequently updated several times during Biden's presidency. Thanks for watching News Digest. If you found this update useful, like the video, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next episode.